When you look at the sperm and the ovum of the human being and the first cell of life that it forms, the DNA that is in the first cell can determine, or does determine, how tall you will be at full growth. That's a journey. You cannot add 1 cubit to your height after you have reached full growth. But you can add girth. And it is this horizontal growth that represents death if it is not controlled by vertical growth. And vertical growth does not mean growing up to the fullness of our height potential, but vertical growth signifies our growth upward in righteousness toward the oneness with God. Now, many of us, as we reach maturity, fullness in physical height, we can't grow anymore that way. But the mind is infinite, and that must continue to grow until death overtakes us. And it is our vertical growth in knowledge and wisdom that will control the horizontal growth of man's need for expansion. Growth materially. I want to possess homes. I want to possess business. I want to gain wealth. There's nothing wrong with that. That is what God has provided us a universe for, and an earth that is full of wealth. But if your horizontal growth is not governed by vertical growth, then your horizontal growth will sentence you to a horizontal level which represents death. Now, so the journey from sperm mixed with ovum to the manifestation of God in our lives, oneness with God, is a process that every time you reach another stage in your development, you will lose something and you will gain something. As the body grows, the struggle of life and death is going on within us. There are cells dying as there are new cells coming to birth. So breaking down and building up is a process that continues until death. What am I saying? The journey toward Allah, He causes us to make stage after stage until we can reach eventual perfection. But at every stage of our development, knowledge-wise, spiritual-wise, you may find loss of a friend and the gaining of new ones. At every stage of development in the journey in religion, you will find as you grow and you change with growth, there are some who got so comfortable in the last stage of their growth, they do not wish to grow anymore. So when you grow past where you were, those that are comfortable where you were will condemn where you are. But where you are, you will gain new friends. And the sad thing is that you will lose old friends. So I believe this is why Jesus said, the race is not to the swift, nor to the strong, but to those who can endure to the end. Now, most of us would like ease. I mean, that's natural. But Allah, God, did not desire ease except after struggle. And he warns us when he gives us ease to be careful of those who live the easy life. Because the easy life will cause girth and stunt your vertical growth toward God. So before you can get too fat, God drops you into another trial that will advance you forward if your attitude in trial and tribulation is right, because adversity is the mother of creativity. I'm going to say that again. The Quran teaches us that Allah begets not, nor was he begotten. To understand that takes deep wisdom. I don't say that I have it, but I had a teacher. He said, if Allah was not begotten, he then is self-created. Self-created. But his own self-creation was attended by adversity. And every life bears witness to his life. Nothing comes into existence without struggle. Nothing comes into existence without adversity. So when you find yourself surrounded by opposition, adversity, and struggle, don't feel that God is displeased with you. Know that this is preparatory to a new stage in your own growth and development. When I began to understand that at every stage of growth and transition, there's a period of darkness. And in that darkness, there's confusion and chaos. But chaos has to precede order. As darkness precedes light. As inactivity or death precedes life. So when you see great chaos, as we live in today, great confusion, as we see in the leaders of today, great trial, tribulation, don't despair. Don't say, what is the world coming to? Understand that some part of it is coming to an end, but that end is also representative of a new beginning. The question is, who will make it out of the old into the new? This book, Quran, is called Al-Nur, the light. Not a light, the light. Without light, there can be no revolution. Without light, there can be no change. All growth must be preceded by the presence of light. For darkness represents no time, no growth, death. So the Bible teaches a people walked in darkness, gross darkness, the people. But then it says, upon them hath the light shined. Once light strikes, the energy that is in the light causes matter to move in accordance with the law of light. Anytime light strikes you, then it forces you to move and to change. So this book, Al-Nur, is a book that produces revolution. Not the cheap kind of revolution that you see in the world where people say, I'm a revolutionary with a gun in their hand. Because the revolutionary with a gun in his hand will take down one government only to replace it with the same thing that he is destroying. But revolution signifies complete change. This book, Quran, is to bring about complete change, transformation in the heart, mind, soul, and spirit of the human being. Once this book becomes the light of our lives and the example of the prophet becomes the light of our lives. Listen to me carefully now. Not the way he wore his beard. Not the way he wore his garment. Not the dye that he put in his hair. That is superficial. And the prophet was not superficial. And you cannot represent him, in my humble judgment, in superficiality, where you look at the prophet and if somebody dresses like him, has a beard like him, you say, and he says assalamu alaikum like the prophet, or says his prayers in the manner that the prophet prescribed. All this is good, but that does not yet make you a follower of the prophet. Now I want you to hear what I have to say today. That's superficial. And if a prophet is to be for all time, up until the day of judgment, then you cannot dress him outwardly. You must address him inwardly and then dress yourselves in his character and in the way he handled the problems of his day, because the cyclical nature of history will confront us, and we will be confronted with some of the same things that the prophet was confronted with. So not knowing how he acted, but knowing how he dressed will cause you to dress like him but not act like him. Therefore you will not address the problems of your time properly. we are in a time of great problem. But the solution has already been given. But the Quran says that they in leadership would no longer take this book as their guide. They would put it behind their back. And if the light is behind your back, what is guiding your footsteps? If this book is ancient stories, unworthy of us to study it to find answers to today's problems, then what are you following? You are following the world and its science, the world and its philosophy, the world and its precepts. But God, the eternal and the all-wise, we have put him behind our back. And when you put, I think this is my brother, there he is, excuse me. Our brother is here, and we are very honored to have Brother Ali with us. I'm only too sad that the Imam is not here, because we have much work to do, much work that we will do, much work that Allah has put on us to do. Now, if Brother Ali at any time wishes to say a word to us, we will be honored to hear what he has to say. Now, getting back to where I was, if the leaders in the world of Islam have put the light, the Quran, behind their backs, then they are leading their people by the precepts and doctrines of men. And the people can never be satisfied with the doctrines of men once they have come to call themselves a Muslim. They don't want to hear what men have to say. They want to hear what Allah has to say, what God has to say. It is the same with Christians. You want to hear what did Christ have to say. Don't bring me to church to tell me what you have to say, because you just got here and you haven't been too good while being here. So please tell me what the eternal God has to say, for he is the best knower, and I want to be his servant and his follower, not the servant and follower of men. I want to be the follower of God, following the example of the prophets whom he raised to give us guidance. Having said that, I looked at President Bush in a time of world crisis. I wrote him a letter, and I'm going to quote a portion of that letter for you, because I felt that he needed guidance. I felt that he needed counsel. You say, well, how arrogant can you be? Just a minute. I'm not being arrogant. But Allah can guide whom he pleases. And he can take a slave and give him guidance for a master. He can take one that was a fool and give him guidance for the so-called wise. And that becomes a test for the hearer. Is he humble enough to listen? Osama bin Laden, they say, is guilty of sending terrorists to bomb the World Trade Center. And most Americans and people of the world have been herded like sheep into believing that without proof. Cynthia McKinney, the black representative from Georgia, desires to hold congressional hearings to answer the question, Mr. Bush, what did you know? When did you know it? And if you knew it, what did you do about it? She wants to raise the question to the intelligence community, the CIA, the FBI. What did you know? When did you know it? And if you knew it prior to September the 11th, what did you do? Now here's a black woman from Georgia calling government to account. This is why we are in the midst of America. This is why God allowed John Hawkins to bring our fathers into slavery, because there would be a time when we would have a divine mission. I said to the president, Mr. bin Laden and no Muslim leader could call for jihad and make it happen. There is no Muslim leader on the earth that has that power of the Khilafah or the Caliph to call for and actually have a holy war. They call for it with their mouths, but there's no answer. I said, but you, President Bush, are in a position of power like no human being has been in since Adam. And if you make the wrong moves, you can bring 1,800,000,000 Muslims into anger against the United States of America. You have that power. You are right to go after those who bombed the World Trade Center. But I said to him, Allah has shown me what is in your mind. Now you may say that the Farrakhan is crazy. I really don't care what you say. I'm telling you. I said, if you pursue what you have in your mind, the coalition will fall apart. The Muslim world will rise in anger against America. Even England will back out on you. And whatever you do, you'll have to do it alone. And you will run into something that you had not counted on. And Armageddon will be on. I told him this in late November or sometime in December. He never answered. He sent Vice President Cheney into the Muslim world to ask them to back America in their desire to destroy Saddam Hussein. The whole Muslim world turned him down. The other day, however, in a press conference at his farm in Crawford, Texas, he and Prime Minister Blair were together, and the president said, quote, "It is the policy of this administration to remove Saddam Hussein from power." I did not say it. He said it. Now, since when has it ever been the policy of an administration of the United States openly to remove another man in another country from power when you got 15 million or more homeless people in America? Where's your policy for the homeless? Where's your policy for the weak and the hungry that go to bed every night without adequate food in a land of plenty? Where is your policy to put the American people who are out of jobs to work? Where is your policy to give decent health care to the American people who don't have adequate health care? That's what the American people want to hear.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. I greet you, my beloved brothers and sisters, and all of you who are regular tuning in to the Imagination Show. I greet you in the greeting words of peace. We say it in the ancient tongue of Arabic. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, 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 dear beloved family and friends. Viewers of the Imagination Show, my name is Brother Leo Muhammad, and sitting alongside me is my beloved sister, Sister Claudia Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum, family, and welcome to another edition of the Imagination Show. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to say it again. I pray to Allah that you are enjoying the countless blessings from Almighty God Allah, because we are a truly blessed people. We may not think so, but we are divinely chosen.
Absolutely. Thank you, beloved. Wonderful to hear those words. Dear family, we have to give each other uplifting words and greetings each and every day in a world like this.
Absolutely.
You know, we on the Imagination Show, we're about the business of raising the consciousness.
That's right.
Elevating us once again as a people to our rightful place, where we are not classified as the flotsam, classified as the dregs of the society, but indeed we are taught in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and as exemplified by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that we should sit ourselves in heaven at once. Heaven is not a place beyond the clouds, dear beloved family. Heaven is a state of mind. It's a condition of the mind. It's how we think about ourselves, how we think about God, how we think about Satan, how we think about a world like this. This is how we can be a heavenly people, literally in the blinking of an eye. All we have to do is adjust this thinking, which is being fed 24 hours, 7 days a week, with pure madness, confusion, and negativity. Dear family, welcome to the Imagination Show. Please, at this time, call a friend, a relative, a loved one, somebody that you care about, and let them know that the Imagination Show is live and direct. Right now, we start each and every Thursday evening at approximately 6 o'clock, and Sister Claudia and I normally start talking around 6:30. And we want to encourage you to, let other people know, share the broadcast, share what it is that we attempt to share with you. And we want you to hit that like button. We want you to subscribe. We want you to do all of those good things that would support and help this show to grow and to flourish. Dear family, the Imagination Show is designed to help us to work our way through all of the confusion and all of the mess, which is by design, by the way. It's not accidental that this life is so difficult. And if you were listening a few moments ago to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, really cutting through again all of the nonsense and the mess that these politicians make of the world, and really highlighting the things that are the genuine concerns of the masses of the people. Healthcare, decent homes, decent food, decent places to live, and so on and so forth, as opposed to some of these government policies that when you examine them, they don't make any sense, because they're not about helping the people. And so this is what we are all about this evening. And again, let us know where you are on the planet. Let us know where you are able to view us from. And Sister Claudia may call out, she may identify some of you and call out where you are, because it's important that we know where you are in the world, where you're viewing us from, because, it shows our reach.
Yeah.
Okay. Praise be to Allah.
Go
ahead, sister.
Greetings to JG. Greetings to 8th Electronics in Southern New Jersey. Greetings to you. Greetings to James Maxton. Thank you for your contribution.
Beautiful.
Colonel Singh, walaikum salam to you. Is that Blitz Tactic from Sudan?
From the Sudan.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But they're in Australia, here in Australia. The one who said, I'll just read out what they said.
Read it.
Greetings, Brother Leo and Sister Claudia. I'm Sudanese. The European colonizers hate us over here in Australia. They treat us with the utmost disdain. It's normal for European men to beat on Aboriginal Sudanese.
Wow. Yes, that's right, dear family. You know, doesn't matter where we are on the planet, especially where we are under the governance of Europeans. We are mistreated, we are ill-treated, and this is why their world, which is a world in Australia stolen from Aboriginal people, has to come to an end because it's based on injustice. And even though the vast majority of the people on the planet may not appreciate this, the reality is that Australia is one of these very repressive places, but it's hidden in plain sight. And more, the Aborigines and the Aboriginal cause is receding into the background. And you might think that there was never a cause or an issue there, but in reality, the people there have suffered ethnic cleansing, they've suffered genocide. And this is the reality of this world in which we live, dear family, where Black people, brown people, and people of color are concerned. But that system, this world is really on its way out. It's coming to an end, and we just have to persevere in our righteousness. Go ahead, sister.
The scripture says, I, God, have heard your moaning and your groaning. It has entered my ears, and I'm not sending no prophet.
That's right. He said, I think I will come down
to see,
yes, it's altogether what I've heard.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
So it's a great and dreadful time. If you're with Allah, God, then we'll be fine. We've got to get follow Minister Louis Farrakhan. He is the light today, the light of the world today, and he will get us across on his shoulders.
That's right. That's right. Praise be to Allah.
What a man.
Dear family.
Okay, let me just
go ahead. Go ahead.
So James Maxton from Queens, New York, B. Deasy from Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yes. Arkansas, yeah.
Brother Bo, Plainfield, New Jersey, Zakram Allah, Boston, Massachusetts.
Beautiful, beautiful.
JTV, peace be unto you also. What's that? Heart Desire Gifts King. Is that Manhattan? Assalamu alaikum. And assalamu alaikum to my brain.
Yeah, I think that's
Zoom family.
Yeah, North Carolina.
Is it North Carolina?
Yes, okay. North Carolina. Yeah,
thank you. Sorry if I've missed out anyone.
Don't worry, we can catch up later on. And,
147 _
Okay, so welcome, dear family, to episode 131 of the Imagination Show. Today is Thursday, the 23rd of May, 2024. And our title today is the UK General Deception. The UK General Deception. For those of us who live in the UK, you will know that that's a play on words because they have now decided to call a general election. But we call it the General Deception. And that's what we want to be dealing with and looking at tonight. Very briefly, because, you know, again, I always say this, the intention is never to try to do a comprehensive take on any of these subject matters. I really do encourage all of us to do our own research and to really look into these parts that we highlight, these subjects that we develop, because there's so much that we need to learn about this world and the way it operates, its machinations, because we have to beat that scripture that says, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. We need to become much more knowledgeable in order that we can't be continuously fooled and hoodwinked by these wicked deceivers.
Sorry, can I
Go
just
ahead,
interrupt?
go ahead,
Sorry,
Sister Claudia.
program by Society is watching live from Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico,
Yes,
wonderful,
praise be to
wonderful.
Allah.
Thank you for
Thank
tuning in. Yesterday, Rishi Sunak
Hmm.
called a general election for the United Kingdom to take place on the 4th of July, 2024. Let me just stop there, because I'm sure you all know that July 4th is American Independence Day, but how many of you know that that's also the Nation of Islam's Independence Day? That's the day that Master Farad Muhammad declared our independence in 1930 from that system called the United States of America. And so that's very significant that he should have called for the election to take place on that day. And I think that day is a day that we should all keep our eye closely on, because, you know, the enemy takes it for granted that his world will perpetuate and continue. But we believe and we know that Almighty God Allah is curtailing his world. And, you know, they may think that the 4th of July will represent some significant milestone or moment for them. But in reality, it may actually represent a significant milestone for us. Because like I said, that's our Independence Day. And, you know, we may discover in terms of the results of that particular election that it actually represents more of a liberation and more of a freeing of you and me, as opposed to them being able to continue business as usual. And so he's called a general election for the United Kingdom to take place on the 4th of July, 2024. And once again, the global warmongering and what I call the great British general deception of the British people and the people of the world is on and in full media swing. Once they call the general election, the media goes into operation, and a whole operation of activity begins, really trying to herd the people in one direction or another, either towards the Conservatives or towards Labour. And then you got a few fringe groups, you know, the Liberal Democrats or whatever, who, you know, a little while ago, but 18 or 20 years or so ago, they actually formed a coalition with the Conservatives. But generally, it's normally about those two parties, Labour and Conservative. But Labour, both Labour and Conservative now are so unpopular with the masses of the people. The masses of the people are so disillusioned by all of their chicanery and madness. And it's just becoming more and more manifest and exposed that don't be surprised if the people go and start voting more for the Greens or independents, you know, people like George Galloway and others, and that the whole election, the whole deception blows up in their face and becomes the sham that it really is. So let's just listen to Rishi Sunak making his announcement outside of number 10 Downing Street about this general deception.
Now is the moment for Britain to choose its future, to decide whether we want to build on the progress we have made or risk going back to square one with no plan and no certainty. Earlier today, I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament. The King has granted this request, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July. This election will take place at a time when the world is more dangerous.
Notice the way Allah rained on him. You see the suit is completely soaked. Completely soaked, because again, nothing is going to go right for them from this day forward, from the time of Allah's coming. Whether we really appreciate it or not, this world has been slowly but surely unraveling before our face. And I want you to listen to this man's warmongering now that he's called a general election, because again, whether it's the Conservatives or Labour, it makes no difference. They are both incrementally pushing the members of the human family towards yet more war. Again, I've got to say it again to you, because I never get tired of quoting you this statistic. Of the 193 countries that are affiliated to the United Nations, Britain, Great Britain, the United Kingdom, has been to war with 171 of these 193 nations. And so you must ask yourself the question, who is the troublemaker on our planet? This little set of islands here, called the United Kingdom, have been to war with 171 of the countries identified and affiliated with the United Nations out of 193. That's how wicked and evil these people are. And at every turn, they're pointing to other people as enemies and as people who are doing something wrong on the planet, as if they are always, you know, the good guys, as if they're always these innocent victims who are being, you know, surrounded by these enemies, and they've got to, you know, do something about it. They've got to defend themselves. They've got to make sure that these nefarious and wicked, evil other entities out there in the world don't overcome them and don't overpower them. This is the mentality that they begin to feed now that they've called for their general deception.
Than it has been since the end of the Cold War. Putin's Russia is waging a brutal war in Ukraine and will not stop there if he succeeds. That war has also made it all too clear the risk to our energy security. In the Middle East, the forces of Islamist extremism threaten regional and ultimately global stability. These tensions are exploited by extremists who seek to undermine our values and divide our society here at home. China is looking to dominate the 21st century by stealing a lead in technology. And migration is being weaponized by hostile states to threaten the integrity of our borders. These uncertain times call for a clear plan and bold action to chart a course to a secure future. You must choose in this election who has that plan, who is prepared to take the bold action necessary to secure a better future for our country and our children.
Make no mistake, we are on course for a Labour majority at the next general election.
Dear family, this is his counterpart. This is his other half. This is the Labour Keir Starmer. And as I said, this is the, you know, it saddens me how these people literally just play the British people, because none of these people, none of these men, I was almost reluctant to use the term man or men, because you can't even describe them in that manner in truth. These are beasts in human form, but none of them give a damn about the British people or the people of the planet. They are very much about their own personal careers and their own personal agenda and fulfilling their masters' agendas, because none of these are really the ones who are representative of themselves. They represent higher and bigger powers, principalities and powers, spiritual wickedness in high places. I hope you understand.
And this was all about the cost of living, and we had a positive case to make. We understood what it's like not to be able to make ends meet, and we said what we would do to help people with their everyday bills. And the government, the Prime Minister, said nothing. And that's because they're the problem, not the solution.
And listen to the way they talk about each other. You know, Sunak, the Conservative, is the problem, not the solution. But they're now the solution. Did you have something you wanted to? Go ahead.
That goes in line with this. This is once again the Teachings 2.0, Volume 2. Minister Farrakhan's answers, compiled by Brother Abdul Qiyam. And this is a question that somebody's asked. Can you weigh in on the impact of poverty on electoral politics? And how does that ever become a part of the political agenda, if any? And the Honourable Minister Liz Farrakhan answers, poverty is not really a part of the political agenda. And that is why the poor have no real voice in politics. So God has to raise from the midst of the poor a voice for them. All the wealth of this planet has been built on the backs of the poor. The awakening of the poor will tumble the power of the rich who have exploited their poverty and the ignorance of the masses.
Wow.
But that soon is coming to an end.
And isn't that beautiful? And just think about it, family. I mean, really think about it. See, whenever you ever seen the poor,
That's right,
getting out of that poverty,
that's right.
The philosophy says the rich get richer
And the
poor get poorer.
That's right,
Never changes.
that's right.
It never changes. You've got the masses of the people who are struggling to make ends meet. And you read about and see these billionaires and millionaires
That's right.
continuously always, living large, flying private jets and you name it and whatever they do. But the masses of the people, nothing changes for them. They live a few days, they die, and then more children are born into that same condition. You see, so understand that this whole political thing is a game. It's a game, okay, where they give you the impression that there's two sides and that you've actually got, some choice that is going to change your condition or your life. But in reality, dear family, both Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak are just two faces of the same coin, with the British people having little or no real choice because they're only being asked to choose between the lesser of two evils. I want you to think about that. You see, because you'll hear that during this deception campaign, you'll hear the media even say that. They'll say, both parties are kind of like messed up. Both of them, their policies are very lacking when it comes to certain things or whatever. However, we have to choose between the lesser of two evils. Well, why should you have to choose any evil? You see, and how do you determine which one is the lesser evil? But this is the language that they know they can use this type of language in front of the masses of the people, because oftentimes the masses of the people don't appreciate that they're being mocked and that they're just being used and abused. Dear family, so as I said, they're only being asked to choose between the lesser of two evils or to choose between Satan and the devil, okay? Just listen to George Galloway, MP for Rochdale, describe them. Listen to his description of Sunak and Starmer.
Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak are two cheeks of the same backside.
Just think about it. I want you to listen to that again, okay? Because this is, and remember, if they are two cheeks of the same backside, that means that they are the same person. That's the point. And believe me, Galloway is not just playing on words here. He knows what he's talking about. And he's trying to send a message to the masses of the people. That's why he's hated. That's why a lot of the times when he stands up and starts talking in Parliament now, they all walk out. Okay? Most of the time when you see him speaking in there, there's a few of them in there. Most of them have left because they can't stand this man. This man is a thorn in their side.
Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak are two cheeks of the same backside.
Dear family, we are dealing tonight with the general deception. And in the end, you have to decide, talking to the people of the United Kingdom right now, you have to decide, who you're going to vote for. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for or who not to vote for. But what I'm saying is that in my humble opinion, and based on my observation of the history of politics in this country and around the world, it really does not work for the people. And I've never read any scripture where God chose a politician. In fact, the politicians, Pharaoh and all of them, have always been the enemy of Almighty God Allah. The scribes and the Pharisees, these are the media moguls, and those who do the scribes, the ones who write or the stories that come out of this system, they've always been against the prophets, and they've always been against the Creator, against the God. And so, you know, I'm not going to be one of those foolish people today who starts to believe that politicians are going to be able to make any kind of change that's going to be of benefit to the masses of the people. Go ahead,
Well,
Sister.
that goes in line. Another question. Somebody asked the minister, why don't you just run for president of the United States just to scare those folks that hate the truth?
Oh,
in
man.
brackets, smile.
Can you imagine?
You know, and the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan answered, well, Brother Farrakhan is not interested in being president of the United States. I do not like the compromising principles of truth for political advantage. That is why spiritual men and women of God have always been challenged by the kings and rulers. For we have to say to the kings and the rulers, thus saith the Lord.
That's right. That's right. You see, dear family, I mean, I can't speak for other spiritual leaders or teachers or preachers, but certainly in the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, no, we have no aspirations for political office. That's not the calling.
That's right.
The calling is to serve God.
That's right.
The calling is to encourage the people to recognize God the Father and to understand that his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. You see, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, not these temporal political rulers. They were given a certain period of time to rule, and their time is now up, and they have failed dismally. See, these are the ones who are classified in the scripture as the wicked husbandmen, who the vineyard was basically rented out to, the vineyard being the planet Earth, was given to them to take care of it for a period of time. And every time God would send one of his prophets and messengers into the vineyard just to see how things were going and to try to uplift the people and to keep the people on a level, these wicked husbandmen would beat them, imprison them, and even murder them. And so the question was asked, what will the owner of the vineyard, what will God do when he returns? And the answer is given, he will utterly slay these husbandmen, these wicked husbandmen, you see? Because even, you know, that's where you get the term husband from. Even those of us who are husbands, we have to be very careful how we treat our wives, because we don't want to be wicked husbands. We're supposed to be good husbands to our wives, because what a husband means is not that the wife belongs to you. The wife is given to you to care for her, to look after her, to have safekeeping of her, because she actually belongs to God. She is like loaned from him to you to really see if you can treat her in the manner prescribed by God. And so when we are wicked, then we start to ill-treat and mistreat our wives in the same manner in which these demonic individuals mistreat the earth, mistreat Mother Earth, mistreat planet Earth. Imagine, you see, do we ever think about the earth as the living entity that it is? How do you think you can put a seed in the ground and it will spawn life? That means that the earth itself is alive. to be able to grow something from nothing into a living entity. And then imagine you have people whose mentality is to drop tens of thousands of tons of TNT, high explosives all over the planet to slaughter and to kill people and to disturb and destroy the water table and do all manner of contamination on our planet. This is the mentality. They don't care about the earth. All this talk about climate change and, you know, how they've got to get to net zero carbon emissions and all this kind of stuff. It's just lip service. It's just talk. And so much of all of that science is pseudoscience anyway and made up. And they suffer from delusions of grandeur where they think that they're so powerful that they can ill affect the climate to such a degree that they are endangering the ecosystem with their madness. Nah, man, they can't do it, family. Believe me, long after they've gone with their pseudoscience about climate change and all the rest of it, the earth will be rolling on, still here, moving at 1,037 1/3 miles per hour, constant. The flow that God put in place. They can't change that. They think they can because, again, like I said, it's delusions of grandeur. They really think they're more powerful than what they are. You hear them boasting about their destructive weapons, that they could destroy the planet so many times over with their nuclear weapons. No, you can't. They will not be allowed to do it. God would never permit them to be able to do that. They just think that they're in that kind of position of power, but they're really not. Their family, their power to rule is over. It's finished. It's done. And when they try to make those kind of big moves, watch and see what will happen. You see, understand this, brothers and sisters. There is a God who is in charge today, a living God, a real God. And that vehicle, those vehicles that you see them reporting more and more and more, they call them UFOs or UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena or unidentified flying objects flying around. These are vehicles that belong to Almighty God Allah and his angels. And his angels are not fat little white girls with Kentucky Fried Chicken wings on their backs flapping around like you see painted on the smoked glass of the churches. The angels are black men, okay? Powerful beings whose sole purpose in life is to obey God and to do his will. Understand what I'm saying to you? I know some of you get freaked out. You don't like to hear these things. Oh, well, that sounds like some crazy notion. Well, hang around a few days. You see, because all of these scriptures that we grew up on and that we've been reading, that we just think we're so spooky. And you think that a spook is going to be able to deal with a wicked enemy like this? With nuclear weapons? With all of these tanks and airplanes and submarines and all the rest of it? Come on, man. You better have a real God who's going to deal with that and not no spook floating around in the sky, because they're not frightened of none of that. You see, I was reflecting on this the other day, and I was looking at all of these, and this is not to cast aspersions on, you know, the other religious people or whatever. I respect them. They believe in something greater, bigger than themselves, and I respect that. However, you see, with the Hindus, I notice here in the UK, so many Hindu temples everywhere. And I think to myself, why would they allow so many Hindu temples to be everywhere, all these Gujarats everywhere? That's because they don't fear the Hindus. They don't fear that anything that Rishi Sunak is a Hindu. So you let a Hindu become your prime minister because you don't fear that they're going to be able to overturn your system or do nothing to you. Okay? Based on maybe some of them believing. I did go to a Hindu temple one time and spoke to one of the priests, and I asked him about this, believing in cows and believing in milk and worshiping snakes and all kinds of stuff like this. And he said, no, he said, at the highest level of Hinduism, they believe in the one God. But it's the adherents, it's the followers who stop at the tree, stop at the cow, stop it. This is what he explained to me. So I said, okay, fair enough. That's interesting. But they don't fear Hindus. They don't fear Christians who believe that God is a spirit and not a man. They don't fear any of that stuff, man. They don't fear. That's why, see, you look around, you can see all of these people, they can have an abundance of temples and churches and spiritual entities or whatever, because those things pose no threat. But you see, the Nation of Islam, we're how did the minister describe it? We're like that, the ark. The ark is described as a rough planks of wood nailed together. When you look at the Nation of Islam, we hardly got any prestigious buildings and so on and so forth. And wherever we go and we try to set something up, we got opposition, government, local government, council opposition, because they're terrified. Why are they terrified of this little entity called the Nation of Islam? Why don't you want us to set up anything or grow in abundance? Nah, man, because you see, you think these people are foolish? They hear and they listen, they know. Why do you think the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is banned from this country? Sun Myung Moon, when he was alive, he was able to come here, the Moonies and all of these different religious groups and entities. All religious people are able to come in here, not Farrakhan. See? Wow. Because there's something unique and different and powerful about the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Take it or leave it alone, dear family. The British people are constantly being lied to and played by the wickedly wise 10% Oxford, Cambridge, and Eton educated. There's other universities and colleges that they go to. I just use those three as an example. Oxford, Cambridge, and Eton educated elites who dominate Westminster politics and who own and run the so-called news media, international banking houses, and the multinational corporations, okay? These are the entities that are playing the British people, that are using and abusing the masses of the people, and the people are being herded like cannon fodder, basically, from one election to the next, from one war to the next. And it's not these entities, it's not the bankers' sons that go and fight the wars. It's not the multinational corporations' sons and daughters that go and fight the wars. It's not the media mogul sons and daughters that go and fight the wars. And it's not those Oxford and Cambridge educated individuals whose sons and daughters ultimately end up on the front line getting blown to smithereens. No, it's the poor, ragged, naked, out of doors people who oftentimes only join the military looking for a job, looking for some job security, looking to be able to feed their families. And the next thing you know, they end up in a war zone. Dear family, I hope you are following what we are saying this evening when we're dealing with this general deception.
Mr. Speaker, the ban on LGBT people serving in our military until the year 2000 was an appalling failure of the British state, decades behind the law of this land. As today's report makes clear, in that period many endured the most horrific sexual abuse and violence, homophobic bullying and harassment, all while bravely serving this country. Today, on behalf of the British state, I apologise. And I hope all those affected will be able to feel proud.
Just before he continues, I wanted you to look at this woman here, Cruella de Vil, Cruella the Devil, Cruella Braverman. This was the former, she was a Home Secretary at that time, and she was sitting there. She is now out of office, but she has aspirations to be the Prime Minister after Richie. After Sunak, she's angling herself to be running the Conservative Party and to ultimately become the female pharaoh of Britain. But I point her out because we'll touch on her a little bit later on. But again, understand this as well, family, because I know some people are puzzled as to how you got Asians or brown people who achieved these high offices in politics in the UK and seem to be so hateful and racist against their own people and against Black people. But you got to understand something about their backgrounds as well. And the fact that many of these are these Asians who are coming out of East Africa historically. They were in Uganda under Idi Amin when Idi Amin threw them out. And they're very angry because what they were doing in Uganda and why Idi Amin ultimately expelled them and threw them out, and most of them came here to the UK, is because they were being used, as they're used in many places, as a buffer between the white colonial masters and the Black people who were being subjugated in these lands. It was the Asians, the Indians, who were being used as the buffer between the Blacks and the whites. And they were like overseers and exploiters because they ran all of the industries, the shops, etc., etc. And when they were thrown out, they were very angry and very bitter. And they remained so against us. And they always saw themselves not as identifying with brown or Black people, but they saw themselves as part of that elite because they were favored by the British. And so again, you know, one of the things that you should study into is the whole caste system that you find in India and how many of them classify themselves and see themselves as Aryans or white, basically. Some of them refuse. They won't even go in the sun. Everywhere they go, they've got to have a parasol or some type of umbrella to keep the sun off of them. And within the caste system, the darker you are, the more untouchable you are. Literally, Black people are referred to as Daleks or untouchables in certain parts of the Indian subcontinent. And so you just got to understand why these people are the way they are and why also they are so acceptable to white supremacy and how easily they can fit into the system of white supremacy without any real glitch. Because I've heard people in talk shows on the radio, they're really confused, you know, about how these Asians can be so racist, how they can carry out these racist policies. But you need to understand their background and where they are coming from. Dear family, you know, I don't know if you were following what Sunak was saying, and I'm playing this specifically to show you how they're able to, and these are really mealy-mouthed, they don't mean a word of it, but how he's able to apologize to the LGBT community for their past, the government's past wrongs against that community, so-called, because, you know, LGBT was illegal and you couldn't be gay or lesbian and be part of the military openly. And so now that they changed the law and, you know, they're now basically celebrating being gay and lesbian and queer and trans and you name it, whatever, all of these different categorizations now of people, now that they've switched from their old posture to this new posture, he's now coming before Parliament at that particular time to apologize to that community. And I want you to remember that they're able to apologize to certain groups when it's deemed expedient to do so.
Mr. Speaker, the ban on LGBT people serving in our military until the year 2000 was an appalling failure of the British state, decades behind the law of this land. As today's report makes clear, in that period, many endured the most horrific sexual abuse and violence, homophobic bullying and harassment, all while bravely serving this country. Today, on behalf of the British state, I apologise. And I hope all those affected will be able to feel proud parts of the veteran community that has done so much to keep our country safe.
Okay, so I hope you followed that, dear family. Richie Sunak, sending out an apology to the LGBTQ community. Now, I'm not sure if you are aware, dear brothers and sisters, but I did have a slide, and for some reason I can't find it, but I did actually create something. But because I don't have that, what I'm proposing to do is just to read something from the Associated Press, AP, because this is something which is just unfolded, and it's in keeping with our subject today. But yesterday, this was the headline of the Associated Press. Britain slammed in inquiry for infecting thousands with tainted blood and covering up the scandal. I'm gonna read that again. Britain slammed in inquiry for infecting thousands with tainted blood and covering up the scandal. The article is by Sylvia Hui, and it goes on. It says, British authorities and the country's public health service knowingly exposed tens of thousands of patients to deadly infections through contaminated blood and blood products, and hid the truth about the disaster for decades. An inquiry into the UK's infected blood scandal found on Monday. I just want you to think about this. Think about what we just read, okay? This is deliberately infecting people with tainted blood and then covering it up. Let me continue. An estimated 3,000 people in the United Kingdom are believed to have died, and many others were left with lifelong illnesses after receiving blood or blood products tainted with HIV or hepatitis in the 1970s to the early 1990s. The scandal is widely seen as the deadliest disaster in the history of Britain's state-run National Health Service since its inception in 1948. This is the same National Health Service that you will hear them lauding and talking about how great it is and it's the best in the world and it, second to we know different. It's in a real mess. And it's been a real mess, really, almost since its inception, in truth. Not that there aren't good people in the service who try and do good things and help the masses of the people. Certainly, that's true. But make no mistake about it, those who are to govern the country and make sure that the National Health Service does what it's supposed to do for the nation's people, they don't care about no National Health Service. In the end, when they're sick, they don't go to no National Health Service, they get private health care, okay? So again, there's a lot of lip service paid by the politicians about the NHS, okay? And, if you remember during COVID, it was clap for the National Health Service, and then immediately COVID had passed, and the National Health Service workers, the nurses and the doctors wanted a pay increase. They were told, get lost, basically.
How they were treated.
And they were then, basically kicked to the curb. But during COVID, when they were willing to put themselves at risk to go and help other people, we were I think it was every Thursday they were applauding
At 8 p.m.
At 8 p.m. on a Thursday, we're clapping for the NHS. Because this is just some wicked, demonic place.
Yeah.
Dear family, I'm going to carry on with this because this is really important. I want you to hear what's been going on in the United Kingdom with this latest scandal. That's the point. One of the reasons I'm going through these things because I'm trying to show you whether it was the LGBTQ situation back in the day, the way in which they dealt with that, and him coming to apologize now. It's the same principle here. It's one scandal after another because that's what the country is about. That's what the leadership is about. It's corrupt. It's not what they tell you it is. And every now and then, their corruption is made manifest. It reveals itself. It's found out, and then they have to come forward and say, "Oh, we messed up, but we're gonna make sure that this never happens again." And it's the same old story each and every time. Did you want to go and do something? Go ahead, beloved. Go ahead. Former judge Brian Langstaff, who chaired the inquiry, slammed successive governments and medical professionals for a catalogue of failures and refusal to admit responsibility to save face and expense. He found that deliberate attempts were made to conceal the scandal, and there was evidence of government officials destroying documents. These people, man. This disaster was not an accident. The infections happened because those in authority, doctors, the blood services, and successive governments did not put patient safety first. He said the response of those in authority served to compound people's suffering. They don't care, brothers and sisters. And, you know, we're always being led to believe that, oh, well, it's just an accident, it's a mistake or whatever. No, this is systemic. You see, this is showing you that the whole system itself, and when they're doing these things, how they work together. You understand what I'm saying? It's not like one entity. The doctors, the government, the services, they all collude in this process in order for it to become such a huge scandal. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak apologized to the victims and said the report's publication marked a day of shame for the British state. I want you to remember that term, a day of shame. Campaigners have fought for decades to bring official failings to light and secure government compensation. The inquiry was finally approved in 2017. Now, don't forget now, family, this started in the 1970s. It was only in 2017 that they finally agreed to a public inquiry. And that public inquiry is taken from 2017 till now for the revelation to be given. But in that time, I want you to understand that since the 1970s, do you know how many of the victims have died? Do you know how many of these people have been told that they were conspiracy theorists? I want you to hear what I'm saying. How many of these people have been evil spoken of and denied in the media and in other places where they have been beating their heads against like what appeared to be a solid brick wall, trying to get justice and trying to get answers to their suffering and the suffering of their children and their parents and their loved ones. But they've been held at bay for decades. Understand? You see? Until now, over 3,000 people dead. I think that one statistic says that one victim dies now every 2 days or something like that. That's because many of them are old now. Some of them were given this blood when they were 9 years old. They're old people now from the 70s. This is how long it takes for the wheels of justice, the wheels of these inquiries to ultimately discover what has really gone on, because the cover-up is so all-encompassing. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak apologized to the victims and said the report's publication marked a day of shame for the British state. Campaigners have fought for decades to bring official failings to light and secure government compensation. The inquiry was finally approved in 2017, and over the past 4 years, it reviewed evidence from more than 5,000 witnesses and more than 100,000 documents. Many of those affected were people with hemophilia, a condition affecting the blood's ability to clot. In the 1970s, patients were given a new treatment that the UK imported from the United States. Some of the plasma used to make the blood products were traced to high-risk donors, including prison inmates who were paid to give blood samples. Wow. They were taking blood from prisoners in America and bringing it over here and giving it to the people, and they weren't even testing that blood to see if that blood was contaminated. It goes on. Because manufacturers of the treatment mix plasma from thousands of donations, one infected donor would compromise the whole batch. The report said around 1,250 people with bleeding disorders, including 380 children, were infected with HIV-tainted blood products. These 3/4 of them have died. Up to 5,000 others who received the blood products developed chronic hepatitis C, a type of liver infection. Meanwhile, an estimated 26,800 others were also infected with hepatitis C after receiving blood transfusions, often given in hospitals after childbirth, surgery, or an accident, the report said. I am truly sorry, Sunak told a packed and silent House of Commons. Today's report shows a decades-long moral failure at the heart of our national life. From the National Health Service to the civil service to ministers in successive governments, at every level, the people and institutions in which we place our trust failed in the most harrowing and devastating way. See, these politicians, they can put together these beautiful sounding words, and you'd be surprised how many of us hearing the contrition and the wonderful sounding words, oh man, yeah, we forgive them, thinking that they mean anything that they're saying, or thinking that they genuinely have any feelings for those who have been ill-affected. No, family, no. He vowed to right this historic wrong and said details of a compensation package expected to total £10 billion or $12.7 billion would be announced Tuesday. Look, family, see, you can't bring those lives back. You can't fix those broken lives with some money. The money will help the families, no doubt, to be able to, live out the rest of their days, maybe in less discomfiture, but that's all they can do is throw some money at it.
Throw
Go
some
ahead.
money, and then what's the point of having that money and ill health? It
Exactly.
goes right back into their hands.
Exactly. I think the scripture says that you would give all your wealth.
That's right.
If you could just have good health.
That's right. And also, adding to that, now they're thinking of phasing out amalgam fillings, because they're saying not so much the health, because of the environment.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Because of the environment.
Yes. Yeah.
This is what they're talking about in the dentistry.
Yes.
Amalgam fillings, dear family. That's the lead fillings.
The mercury.
The mercury fillings that they've been putting in our teeth for years.
Years.
Which when they get old and they deteriorate, that mercury begins to leach, and it's right next to our brains. And this is where you got these problems of Alzheimer's and all kinds of disorders, mental disorders, and all kinds of physiological problems that develop because these people put mercury in people's teeth.
What a world.
What a world, Sister Claudia. What a world. The report said that many of the deaths and illnesses could have been avoided had the government taken steps to address the risks linked to blood transfusions or the use of blood products. Since the 1940s and the early 1980s, it has been known that hepatitis and the cause of AIDS, respectively, could be transmitted this way, the inquiry said. So they knew.
Yes,
That's the point. They knew.
They know.
Langstaff, this is the inquiry chairman, said that unlike a long list of developed countries, officials in the UK failed to ensure rigorous blood donor selection and screening of blood products. At one school attended by children with haemophilia, public health officials gave the children multiple riskier treatments as part of research, the report said. So they were, even during that period, they were using children as lab rats to experiment on them. Okay, I want you to bear in mind some of the things which have been happening in recent years, because make no mistake about it, exactly what you see them were doing with this tainted blood, they've been doing the same thing with other mass treatments that have been going on. We'll touch on that in a minute. He added that over the years, authorities compounded the agony by refusing to accept that wrong had been done, falsely telling patients they had received the best treatment available and that blood screening had been introduced at the earliest opportunity. Lies, blatant lies. And you see how they lie. They're telling you, look, not only are you wrong, you've received the best treatment. Terrible. See, that's where they go. They go all the way to the opposite end of the spectrum to make you start to question your own sanity. When you can see clearly, you know what's going on with your loved one, with yourself, whoever has been given these products, which are absolutely devastating their lives. But they're telling you, no, don't believe your lying eyes or your lying body that's telling you that you're ill. You were given the best of all treatments, falsely telling patients they had received the best treatment available and that blood screening had been introduced at the earliest opportunity. When people were found to be infected, officials delayed informing them about what happened. My God. Even after they discovered that you've been infected, they're delaying telling you. They're holding off telling you. Langstaff said that while each failure on its own was serious, taken together, they are a calamity. Andy Evans of campaign group Tainted Blood told reporters that he and others felt like we were shouting into the wind during the last 40 years. We have been gaslit for generations. This report today brings an end to that. It looks to the future as well as says this cannot continue, he said. Diane Johnson, a lawmaker who has long campaigned for the victims, said she hoped that those found responsible for the disaster will face justice. They're not going to face no justice. They're not going to face no justice, except the justice of Almighty God, Allah. But in terms of the criminal justice system in this country, yeah, they might find a couple of low-level officials that they can throw as scapegoats to the system. But in terms of those who really did the evil at the very top, no, man. And after 40 plus years, see, a lot of those perpetrators will be dead themselves anyway. And so those found responsible for the disaster will face justice, including prosecution, though the investigations have taken so long that some of the key players may well have died since. Exactly what I just said. They may well have died since. There has to be accountability for the actions that were taken, even if it was 30, 40, 50 years ago, she said. Dear family, this is the world in which we live. The British Parliament is the synagogue of Satan, masquerading as a house of honorable men and women who cast evil suggestions in firm resolutions. So says the Holy Quran. They cast evil suggestions in firm resolutions. I put there in brackets pass, because they pass these resolutions. These suggestions are the laws that they pass in firm resolutions. Please, dear family, watch and listen to Tony Blair, the wicked and evil former leader of the Labour Party, responsible for over 1 million dead Iraqi people. This is what we are dealing with today in the general deception.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
It concludes that Iraq has chemical and biological weapons, that Saddam has continued to produce them, that he has existing and active military plans for the use of chemical and biological weapons, which...
And that, as you listen to this, you see, you just need to, go and look at the Congress or the Senate. You need to look at Parliament today in 2024 and listen to the things that they're saying about Iran. Listen to the things they're saying about Russia. Listen to the things they're saying about North Korea. Listen to the things they're saying about China, because it's the same. Nothing changes. These politicians are demonic beings sitting in that synagogue of Satan, pronouncing on other nations, projecting their own evil onto others with a view to stirring up the emotions of the masses of the people to get them ready to go to war against innocent men, women, and children in other nations who have done nothing to them, but who may stand in the way of their procuring that nation's oil, that nation's resources, that nation's commodities, that nation's minerals. And this is what this thing is all about. And also that they want to have this complete domination or hegemony on the planet, whereby they control not only their own regions, but other regions of the earth. And that everybody has to be subservient to them and bow down to them. This is what they do, dear brothers and sisters. And so listen to Blair, listen to and listen to Kevin Spacey. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince you or me or us and the world that he doesn't exist. You got to remember that after Blair told this big lie and took the world into war, this coalition of the wicked into war against Iraq and Saddam Hussein, he came back and won another election. The people went out and voted for him in droves. Just think about that. See? Because he made people think that he's a good man. But that's after the man is responsible for the death of millions of human beings on the basis of a lie. So we're not, we're not making stuff up, man, when we say the white man's the devil. We know who he is. We know how he operates. We know how he works. And those of us who remain in denial about these things, well, more fool you. Understand this. Just take it out and put it back in there. Understand this, dear family. This is serious business. Okay? We are being played.
Could be activated within 45 minutes, including against his own Shia population, and that he is actively trying to acquire new...
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
It concludes that Iraq has chemical and biological weapons, that Saddam has continued to produce them, that he has existing and active military plans for the use of chemical and biological weapons, which could be activated within 45 minutes, including against his own Shia population, and that he is actively trying to acquire nuclear weapons capability.
This is, this is just barefaced lying. That's what the man did. He told a barefaced lie, and People believed it, and the media, they knew he was lying. But their job is to cheerlead it and to push it and to write it up, keep it going until ultimately somebody gets destroyed, somebody's country gets destroyed. Dear family, you can be forgiven for thinking when you hear the following speech from David Lammy that you're listening to a strong and courageous black man. But alas, such words, despite the sound and fury, are just that, words and nothing more. Because in the very next breath, David Lammy will be towing the Keir Starmer party line and defending a settler colonial occupation, mass displacement, ethnic cleansing, starvation, and genocide in Gaza. This is what David Lammy has been supporting recently. So despite all of his bluster here in terms of what he's saying, don't fall for the hype. This is what Parliament is all about. This is what British politics is. It's sound and fury, lots of words, but in the end, it's trickery, dear brothers and sisters. And unfortunately, as a black person, you can't even really be in there. You can't be in there unless you've determined to compromise yourself in order to be able to get in there in the first place.
Well, can I say to the Home Secretary that the relationship between this country and the West Indies and Caribbean is inextricable. The first British ships arrived in the Caribbean in 1623, and despite slavery, despite colonisation, 25,000 Caribbeans served in the First World War and Second World War alongside British troops. When my parents and their generation arrived in this country under the Nationality Act of 1948, they arrived here as British citizens. It is inhumane and cruel for so many of that Windrush generation to have suffered so long in this condition, and for the Secretary of State only to have made a statement today on this issue. Can she explain how many have been deported? She suggested earlier that she would ask the High Commissioners. It is her department that has deported them. She should know the number. Can she tell the House how many have been detained as prisoners in their own country? Can she tell the House how many have been denied health under the National Health Service? How many have denied pensions? How many have lost their job? This is a day of national shame, and it has come about because of a hostile environment policy that was begun under her Prime Minister. Let us call it as it is. If you lay down with dogs, you get fleas. And that is what has happened with this far-right rhetoric in this country. Can she apologise properly? Can she explain how quickly this team will act to ensure that the thousands of British men and women denied their rights in this country under her watch in the Home Office are satisfied?
Here, here, here. Brothers and sisters, let me tell you something, man. Sound and fury, a lot of bluster. The brothers and sisters, I'm one of the Windrush children, by the way. Compensation, joke. They're playing games with the people. They've been doing it from day one. They lied when they said that they were sorry about what had happened and, you know, they wanted to rectify and they're going to compensate and whatever. Our people are absolutely waiting, and it will be another 40 years, 50 years. Not that these demons are going to be around that long, because their world is finished now. And as I keep saying, just hang around a few days, because you're going to see some genuine and real changes, dear family, because this world is finished, okay? But what I'm saying to you is that if you're looking to these politicians to do the right thing, then you are whistling Dixie. I know they say that in some parts of America. You are wasting your time. They say, how did the Native Americans say? They said the white man speaks with forked tongue. He says one thing out of one side of his mouth and he means another thing out of the other side of his mouth, okay? He's got that forked tongue, okay, that comes out and he cannot tell the truth. He cannot abide with the principle of truth. He is just a natural-born liar. And not only a natural-born liar, he's a natural-born killer. Can't help himself. I think it was when our late brother Bernie Grant asked Tony Blair about reparations in the House of Commons for our 400 years of British tyrannical enslavement and colonization, that the question sealed Bernie Grant's fate. Because Bernie Grant was relatively young when he suddenly keeled over and died. And you got to be careful what questions you ask in that house, that you don't know your place. And so I'm saying this sister better know where she is standing. And notice how Sunak can't even bring himself to muster the usual fake apology when it comes to our pain and suffering at the hands of the British state for over 400 years. I just want you to listen to Sunak's response after this sister asked him this question.
23 years since the passing of the late great Bernie Grant, a former member of this House and the founder of the UK reparations movement in the UK. In his last Prime Minister's questions before his death, he asked for an apology to the people of African descent, living and dead, for our country's role in slavery and colonialism. But since then, Prime Ministers and heads of state have only ever expressed sorrow or deep regret. These are not sentiments that are befitting one of the greatest atrocities in human history. And there's been no acknowledgement of the wealth that has been amassed or the fact that our country...
Dear sister, not one of the greatest atrocities, the greatest atrocities. You know, these Ashkenazi Jews, these European Jews, they love to talk about the Holocaust being the greatest crime. No, dear family, 4 years and 6 million people, if we go by what they say, put into gas chambers and killed by Nazis in Germany. Okay, contrast that to conservative estimates of 100 million Black people dying in the Middle Passage alone. That's just in the transportation from Africa across the Atlantic into the so-called New World. Never mind 400 years of the most brutal treatment meted out to any people in the annals of history. Okay? That's what you got to look at, talking about the worst crime. No, there is nothing greater of evil that's ever been done to any people, and that's why we still suffering the legacy of it today, because it's not ended, it's not over. Our people are still suffering. There's never been any redress, no reparations, nothing whatsoever. And so, you know, my dear sister, just understand that the reality is
heads of state have only ever expressed sorrow or deep regret. These are not sentiments that are befitting one of the greatest atrocities in human history. And there's been no acknowledgement of the wealth that has been amassed or the fact that our country took out the largest loan it ever has to pay off the slave owners and not the enslaved. So I want to ask the Prime Minister today if he will do what Bernie Grant asked all those years ago, what I have asked and what countless others have asked since, and offer a full and meaningful apology for our country's role in slavery and colonialism and commit to reparatory justice.
No, Mr. Speaker. What I think our focus should now be on doing is, of course, understanding our history in all its parts, not running away from it, but right now making sure that we have a society which is inclusive and tolerant of people from all backgrounds. That's something that we on this House, our side of the House, are committed to doing and will continue to deliver. But trying to unpick our history is not the right way forward, and it's not something that we will focus our energies on.
No.
23 years since the passing of the late...
No, Mr. Speaker. No, of course not. You can apologize to the LGBT people. You can apologize for the blood, scandal. You can apologize, but don't dare start talking about apologizing to Black people for the worst crime in the history of the world. No, that's not going to happen, dear family. And any one of us who thinks that if there was an apology, it would be meaningful or it would be sincere, again, we would be living in a fool's paradise. What do you think those words, oh, we apologize, I'm sorry, do you think that's going to change anything? No, dear family. You need to go and study the 8 steps of atonement that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan laid out for us in 1995 at the Million Man March. Because there are steps, there are things that needs to be done to demonstrate that there is genuine atonement, genuine contrition, genuine desire to rectify the wrong that's been done, to repair the damage, you see. And in the absence of those steps, you can forget it. Understand this. The devil has been given an opportunity right now. The enemy has been given a chance right now to do the right thing. And he's been given that chance for a long time. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that his time to rule was up in 1914, and he's been getting warning since 1930, you see? So don't think that he don't know and that he doesn't know the time and what must be done, and that he hasn't been warned sufficiently. But what's been his response? His response has been to ban the minister. His response has been to call the minister ugly names, like anti-Semite and racist and bigot and all of these nonsensical terms that they like to throw around. But dear family, the warning only lasts so long. And then Allah will act. And so this is where we are. This is what's going on now that you see these people talking about a general deception. He's called a general deception for the 4th of July, 2024. And I'm predicting that that's going to be a bad day for all of them. I'm not just talking about the Tories. According to the media, the Tories are going to lose. Keir Starmer is going to be the new prime minister. It's a done deal. Yeah, maybe that's the case, but understand this: Keir Starmer is not going to have no good time. It's not going to be no good time for him. It's not going to be no good time for the Labour Party, and it certainly is not going to be no good time for the Tories or any of them. They're finished. They're finished. Their world is to be turned upside down and inside out, and all of this projection that they're projecting onto China, projecting onto Russia, projecting onto Iran, projecting onto North Korea, projecting onto all of these. And by the way, they're trying to kill Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso. They've been trying to reverse that revolution that's taken place there. They're trying to reverse. They're trying to reinstate themselves in the African continent. I think the other day, some type of coup was thwarted in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They're still doing their stuff with their CIA, with Mossad, with MI5. They're still all over the world trying to create madness and mayhem and bloodshed among the other countries and other peoples, interfering in their elections, interfering in their political processes, interfering in their social cohesion. This is what they do, whilst at the same time, they give this world this image of, we are a democracy and we're so good and we're so righteous and virtuous. It's demons, dear family. There have been so many wicked and evil deeds perpetrated by the Western governments, led by America and Britain, instigated by their corrupt politicians, and covered up by the bought and paid for media, like 9/11. It's strange the minister mentioned 9/11. 9/11 in 2001, the so-called 7/7 terrorist attacks in the UK. You remember that, baby? We couldn't
get out.
We couldn't get out of the area where we lived on 7/7 in this country. So-called terrorism was taking place all over London, buses blowing up and underground trains blowing up. And then, but be in no doubt, if you think this contaminated blood scandal is bad, wait until the truth is known about the so-called COVID vaccines and the mass deaths and injuries that have and are being caused as a direct result of the biggest medical fraud ever. You haven't heard the last of that? I know some of us think, oh yeah, no. You don't know nothing about what went on and these so-called vaccines. You remember there was a time we wasn't even allowed to mention it, couldn't even talk about it without being cancelled and all the rest of it. Who knows? They may even pull this down now because we dare to mention it again. But this, dear family, like the blood scandal that's now being revealed is kindergarten stuff compared to the mass deaths that have taken place and are taking place and will continue to take place as a result of people getting juke with absolute killer stuff that had nothing to do with vaccinating them against a virus called COVID-19. And for those of you who took it, I say this, according to my understanding, it's probably permanent, but my suggestion to you is to fast and pray. Because if you fast, you can cleanse your body. It's possible to get rid of the spike proteins that way, potentially, and pray to Allah, pray to God, and clean up your system, clean up your life. Don't be doing anything or taking anything that could exacerbate whatever it is that they injected into your body, whether you took one or you've had boosters and all the rest of it, because so many people just bought into the whole program and have had 2, 3, 4 boosters. My God, and you got this situation with all of these young athletes and people just dropping dead in the middle of basketball games, football games, doing exercises, training, whatever the case may be. So many people having cardiac arrest, so many people having brain tumors, so many people coming up with unusual and strange cancers, so many people, when the autopsies have been performed on people, now they're finding all these long, stringy things in their arteries, in their veins. I mean, family, you got to understand. Go ahead, Sister Claudia.
But if you remember, the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan did pray.
He told us as well, didn't he?
But he prayed for all of those who have taken the vaccine,
yes.
that Allah may heal them.
Absolutely. And pray for yourself.
That's right.
Pray for yourself. And as I said, fasting is a very, very powerful way to cleanse the body. And if you can do 7 days, if you can do 3 days, wonderful. But if you can do 7 days, man, just on water, you're giving your body a real clean there. If you can do 14 days, wow. If you can do 21 days, takes 21 days to change the condition, to change a habit, to change. And your body, man, if your body is contaminated in any way or form, chances are, after that period of time, it can expel any foreign body or foreign agent that's not supposed to be within your system. And you can begin the process of renewal. So that would be my advice, dear family, because the enemy has done something really, really wicked with these vaccinations. They're not vaccinations, they're not vaccines, but with these injections that he coerced and forced people to take on threat that they might lose their jobs or not be able to travel, not be able to go into nightclubs. I mean, imagine some parts of America, they were offering people joints, weed,
right.
to take it.
Hmm.
Brothers and sisters, listen to this.
Back on his feet after a harrowing ordeal.
All I did was go and take a vaccine.
Now Chris Nemeth is fighting for justice.
I couldn't walk, I couldn't work.
The once healthy 49-year-old became wheelchair-bound after developing a chronic neurological disorder called CIDP. He says the symptoms began 2 weeks after having his first AstraZeneca vaccination in 2021. They included headaches, tingling fingers, facial palsy and stolen mobility.
I was paralysed completely from the waist down.
Mr Nemeth is still unwell and claiming millions of dollars in compensation under the federal government's COVID-19 vaccine claim scheme. He's one of more than 3,000 unlucky Australians maintaining COVID vaccines made them ill.
We've just had a settlement of $2.2 million for a very deserving applicant.
Tanya Nielsen is helping 100 injured Australians claim for rare but recognised vaccine side effects, like heart issues from the Pfizer vaccine and Guillain-Barré syndrome from AstraZeneca.
Over 12 months in which to get an outcome, and these are applicants who might not be able to work, so they don't have an income.
So far, the claim scheme has paid 147 people $7.7 million, with more than 2,000 applications in progress. Chris Nemeth wants interim payments and a simpler system. The scheme closes early next year. Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Remember, family, this was the government and the media that instigated all of this and told the people to go and do this to themselves, you see? And like I said, give it enough time. You know, right now that's happening in Australia, but make no mistake about it, it's happening all over the world. Okay, people are suffering in America, they're suffering here, they're suffering everywhere where they've taken this jab. Okay, understand this. And it's only a matter of time before the whole truth is revealed about what they did. It's like this vaping. I've told people, I say it to people, just give it enough time.
That's right.
And they're going to tell you that vaping is actually worse than smoking, and that it's far more dangerous than smoking, especially when you see the way that people are sucking this thing down into their lungs, like some substitute for tobacco smoke, because they've been convinced that it's safer.
That's right.
An alternative, and it's safer. You see, oh man, do you understand that in the early days of smoking cigarettes, that they said they actually advertised it as being healthy? They actually said it was not that it was, you know, like it was okay. No, this was something healthy that you was doing. That's how far they go.
Ridiculous.
So go ahead, sister.
Well, that's why subscribe to the Final Call newspaper, because there's fantastic articles in there. I'm not going to read the whole article because of time, but it's a page where the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan calls on the entire Black nation to declare war on obesity fact. Try and subscribe to the Final Call. You can read the rest of this article, but I'm just going to read some of it.
Go ahead.
Where it says, the Honourable Elijah Muhammad taught us a method of how to eat to live. The scholars and scientists of nutrition are now being witnessed that the
being witness, okay.
Yeah, being witnessed that the Honourable Elijah Muhammad was far ahead of the entire world of the medical science on proper diet and eating habits, 1 meal a day. It is written in the scriptures of the Bible that Jesus said, I come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. But is this the case? In addition to murder and other forms of domestic violence, the Black nation is dying from all manner of disease. It would be difficult to find a case of a Black man or woman who lived a long, healthy life and actually died of natural causes. Instead, the Black community is disproportionately plagued with death from heart attacks, strokes, cancer, and diabetes. According to insurance statistics, more than 75% of the entire adult population in America has some type of degenerative disease. Even when we live beyond the age of 50 or 60, it is a life of agony, crippling arthritis, indigestion, colds, flu, constipation, allergies, how do you say that again? Cystinitis, I know.
Synestis.
No, I know the word. My brain is not. Synesthesis. I'm not saying it properly.
Headaches. Okay.
Yeah, it's the no. Somebody. Yeah.
Sinusitis.
Yeah, sinusitis.
I'm not saying
yeah.
that either.
Headaches, backaches, and painful swelling in the joints are part of our daily lives. Chronic fatigue, false teeth, reading glasses, premenstrual syndrome, menstrual cramps, hair loss, varicose veins, and wrinkles are actually unnatural and unnecessary conditions that are considered normal in today's society. These complaints are now being suffered by children from the age of 4 years old because of improper diet and unhealthy family relations. In the midst of all this misery, do we really know the Jesus who promised us abundant life when we are experiencing just the opposite? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to us that his teacher, the great Mahdi, Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever, came to free us from the bondage of sin, ignorance, and disease. It is written in the Bible that God would come to seek and to save that which was lost. He would come to a foolish people due to their folly, are despised and rejected. And he would choose them to be his people, and he would be their God, Savior, Redeemer, Deliverer, and Restorer.
Praise
be to us. So that's why any ailments that we're all suffering, try and get on to How to Eat to Live. Log on to NOI.org and the Final Call store. Order these books. They will save our lives. How to Eat to Live, books 1 and 2.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, beloved. That's so serious.
That's
so
right.
serious. So serious. Because what it is, okay, so we're pointing out some problems, but guess what? There are solutions.
That's right.
There are solutions. Okay, there are solutions. Very, very important, brothers and sisters, that we become proactive. That's what the Imagination show is all about. It's a call to action.
That's right.
It's saying to me and you, get up and do something now for yourself.
That's right.
Make that change in your life, because we don't have to sit there and be victims and victimized.
That's right.
You know, we can actually change our own condition.
That's right.
Okay, brothers and sisters, I was just reading some of the comments from some of our viewers, and they're awesome. People just bearing witness. Thank you, family. So as we come towards the end of our show today, I want to say I really do hope and pray that our subjects and the sad and sometimes pessimistic conclusions about this world that we reach don't leave any of you thinking that there's no hope, because there are plenty of reasons to be optimistic if we will embrace truth and realize that God comes after Satan has finished his work, and that we need to take another look at our children and some of the intelligent and fearless youth that are being produced today by us for our total and complete liberation tomorrow. I don't know if any of you saw this young sister put in Cruella, coward man, because her name is Suella Braverman, in her place. But man, I was energized. I felt good to see a young sister articulating herself in the manner in which this young sister did, and really put in this woman who, you know, even in this clip, you don't really get to hear too much from Suella Braverman. But even if you did, what she had to say was so nonsensical and so foolish. But what each time the young sister came back, she was so articulate and so decisive and so powerful and so truthful and so intelligent in her responses. I said, man, praise be to Allah, because what it told me is that we got a good future ahead of us. Right. If there are young people like this out there who know the truth and are courageous enough to challenge the giants in the land, because that's what the Joshua generation is all about. They're not afraid of the so-called adults or the so-called giants.
Whoever you are.
Okay, they will challenge you and they will defeat you ultimately. And so let's feast on our young sister and her demolishing of this Suella Braverman.
You're a liar. You're a liar. Yeah, you are a war criminal. So I think you're detached. Well, obviously the camps haven't started because of October the 7th specifically. Right. They're starting, I mean, this week in loads of encampments up and down the country. They've been like celebrating and having to like memorize the fact that this week commemorates the Nakba, which took place 76 years ago, which means catastrophe, which is a massive symbol of what Israel has been doing for the last 76 years. This isn't about October the 7th. And to start with that is just entirely disingenuous, I think, on your part. I really want to say that I think it's great, actually, that you went to that camp today and tried to talk to those students. And you kind of embarrassed yourself, I would say, whilst doing that, because it was a reminder for me, and I'm sure for other people watching, that actually the Palestine movement brought you down, and the Palestine movement has the potential to bring down lots of other Tory ministers and the whole Tory government, and not just the Tory government, I would say any government and any mainstream political party that is backing what Israel is doing right now, which is a genocide, and that's what people are afraid. You are the one, and your government is completely out of touch with what actually the majority of people in Britain think about what's happening. The majority of people in Britain do not support what Israel is doing and actually want us to stop sending weapons. And you were saying today that we should send more, which is completely opposed to what people in Britain actually want. So I think you're detached, because the Conservative government is facilitating and supporting a genocide. And not just that, it's also overseeing a horrific set of policies, austerity policies, that are damaging everyone's lives in Britain today.
Okay. So you have no view on Hamas, and you have no message for Hamas, and you have no
I'm not here to
connection
talk about
to
Hamas.
You're not here, right? So you don't have a view.
Connection to Hamas.
Okay.
She did ask you a direct question there. I think our viewers would like to know, do you think Israel has a right to exist?
I think that's a silly question, to be honest. And I think you're asking the wrong questions. You're asking those questions to distract from the central point that I was making, which is that the reason you don't like these student protesters and you don't like these encampments, one is because they've already brought you down, but two, it's because of what it represents, which is a growing movement and a growing feeling in this country, which is against the Tories and against any main political party.
You have made that point. So would you say that Israel has a right to defend itself?
Israel does not have the right to do what it is doing right now, which is a genocide, which is the criminal enslavement and trapping people in certain places and then saying, you've got to move somewhere else. The ongoing invasion of Rafah that has been spoken about today, the displacement of millions of people. Of course they don't have the right to do that, and no one thinks they do.
Right.
And you posing those questions is exactly what makes students in Cambridge think, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to talk to any war criminal, I want to grow this encampment, I want to grow a movement.
Well, it's quite strong stuff. I mean, as far
criminal.
Yeah, I mean, so
yeah, you are a war criminal.
We've seen from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That is an anti-Semitic chant calling for the eradication of Israel, the eradication of Israelis, and the eradication of Jewish people.
No, you're a liar. You're a liar. On every single one of these mass protests, right, there is a huge Jewish bloc. In all of these encampments, the encampments that you went to today, even in Cambridge, talking about all this kind of stuff, the Cambridge group, Cambridge Jews for Justice, they said, you are weaponizing their identity to promote a culture war. And that's all this is, because you've got no actual real policies or statements or anything to offer people in this country. Let's be honest, the reason you're here and the reason you went today is because you want to be the leader of the Tory party. You're interested in your career. You're interested in promoting that. So that's why you come out with your lies.
Could I ask? I mean, this is, to be honest, I'm completely...
And that's completely false to call the marches anti-Semitic. People don't believe that. You specifically and your government have been the architects of horrific racist policies and whipping. You're talking about hatred. You're talking about violence. You're talking about all of these terrible things. I was watching the thing today. You're saying war is a tragedy and all of this kind of stuff. First of all, capitalism produces all of that tragedy, produces racism, produces all these.
I mean, I do wonder if that's the central point, isn't it? Is it?
And I think Western imperialists are the first people who set up that problem in the first place, and they're continuing to back everything that Netanyahu
refusing
is doing.
to condemn Hamas.
And you refuse to condemn the whole system that produced all of that violence in the first place.
Both of you, thank you.
Brothers and sisters, it is really important, you know, that we appreciate that this planet belongs to us, that we are the original people of the earth, that no people could be on this planet unless they came via the black man's seed and the black woman's womb. That's the reality. Everything that happens on this planet concerns us. We are the ones who produced the entire human family. And so the idea, even when we look at somewhere like Palestine or what they want to call Israel, this is northeast or northwest Africa, okay? This is a part of our continent where these people are perpetrating their wickedness. This is a part of our motherland. And we are the original people there, okay? And because of displacement and racism and ethnic cleansing, today you have these others who have taken up residence. But understand this, all throughout Gaza and Palestine, you got black people. Don't make a mistake of thinking that this doesn't concern us, because more or less what you see is light-skinned Arabs or white European Ashkenazi Jews. No, dear family, that's our land, that's our place, all of it belongs to us. And so the idea that we're talking about or interfering in something that doesn't concern us, this is a mistake on your part, your understanding. The earth is Allah's and the fullness thereof. And so, family, these elections, these politicians, they're not there to represent us. They're not there to represent freedom, justice, and equality. They're not there to bring about any kind of meaningful change in this world. They are there to perpetuate that which has been going on since the rule of the enemy began. And so, you know, as I said, it's more deception, and we have to be able to see through the deception. We have to be able to discern the difference between truth and falsehood. I like what Gabriel Muhammad said, hurl truth at falsehood till it knocks out its brains. And yeah, we can't do the polite talk where we can't call a liar a liar. No, when somebody's lying, you tell them that they're lying. You know, it's not about being cool. It's about telling truth, you see. And if somebody is a war criminal, you call them a war criminal. This is what's missing from so many of these political debates and political discussions these days, that people won't actually say what is. And so the perpetrators oftentimes get a free pass and they're able to continue in their evil and continue to gaslight or hoodwink the masses of the people, because nobody's actually willing to call them out and tell truth to their face. And so, yeah, we applaud our young sister. And regardless of whether she's Somali, whether she's mixed race, whether those things are irrelevant. She's our sister. She's one of our sisters. We are on the planet 4,400,000,000 non-Caucasian people. The Caucasians are about 400 million and rapidly declining because they are their populations are at zero population growth, and they are fast dying as a people. They have what's called gray power because they're getting older and older, while we are having children. Our children are having children, and we're getting younger and younger. And so it's just important for us to appreciate what we're looking at and what we must be about today. And I want to emphasize what Sister Claudia raised earlier about taking care of our health and fighting and attacking obesity and these other debilitating conditions, because if we're not healthy within ourselves, we can't actually deal with anything external to ourselves. We've got to be right within ourselves to begin with.
That's right.
And so self-improvement is a critical component in this war against the enemy. The enemy has declared war on us many, many, many years ago, and he fights this war relentlessly, and he fights it 24 hours, 7 days a week. We've got to understand that we are at war, and we've got to start fighting back.
That's right.
And it begins with the way in which we deal with our own selves. It begins with our own thinking. It begins with our ability to recognize our family when we see our family, and learning how to embrace our family and love our family, love ourselves and love our family. And this is what this process is all about. So, dear family, I want to thank you so much. Brother Raj says she was so powerful in her truth-telling that the white presenter had to run interference for Suella as she was being exposed so much. That's right. That's right. Robert Mann says exactly, they are not the true people anyway. Ronald Thompson says from Birmingham, England, do you know Vicky Dillard? She is fighting for reparations in America. Yeah, I'm familiar with our sister. She's very familiar with the nation. If you listen to her language, she uses a lot of the terminologies that the brothers and sisters in the nation uses, like beloved and so on and so forth. She's a very beautiful, powerful sister. QU33N Jane Version says they are both European, both Israeli and Palestine. They are not the real nobody, so let them duke it out on their own. We need to put us first, point, period, blank. Okay. Gabriel Mohammed says, hurl truth at falsehood till it knocks out his brain. Eighth Electronics says, glad that she pointed out those distracting questions. Gabriel Mohammed says, whoa. Tess Robert, I have to give this debate to Suella Braverman. Calling your opponent a liar and war criminal isn't cool. Also, she is too emotional about an issue that doesn't concern her. Tess Robert, again, why all these black people care so much about Israel, Palestine, and not their own countries in Africa. It's too silly. Abdul Rahman, isn't she Somali? I said Abdul. Gabriel Muhammad, that's right. Fearless children. Gabriel Muhammad again. Assalamu alaikum, beloved family. Now turning in Little Rock, Arkansas. Am I saying that right? Arkansas.
Yeah.
Arkansas, Arkansas. Don Fetty, I don't like that. I'm not sure exactly what you're relating
Maybe
to.
it's something else.
Yeah, something else before. Tess Robert, pro cyclists used to smoke mid-race as they thought it would expand lungs to help them breathe. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Don Fetty, it's certainly 5 times stronger in addictiveness. I can attest to that. I think he's talking about the vaping.
Yes.
Oriz says, greetings. What's your thoughts on that helicopter crash that killed the Iranian president? No thoughts at the moment, other than the fact that it's a tragedy for the president and his foreign minister and the people of Iran. And I pray that Allah is pleased with him. But thus far, there's lots of speculation, but from what I've read and seen thus far, it looks like it may genuinely have been an accident, but we don't have any actual facts outside of that. So we'll wait and see. Go ahead.
At the end of the day, everything is in Allah's hand.
Absolutely. It's all in God's
Yes,
hands.
yes.
And we will see. We'll see if after investigation there are any culprits involved. And then we'll see what happens after that. Tess Robert says, help me, Leo. All members of my family took the vaccine despite my warning. Well, I can bear witness that some members of my family took it after being given warning, but there's nothing you can do other than to give a clear word and give a warning. And then, as I said, pray for them, because some people just will not be guided. Don Fetty says, some countries made it mandatory. Tess Robert says, Keir Starmer and Richie Sunak both nasally voiced Mickey Mouse leaders. Imagine having such a man as the leader of your country. Exactly. Zakrum Allah, Tripnology. Tess Robert, David Lammy is married to a white woman. I believe she's Jewish as well. Don Fetty, what a liberty. Don Fetty, these were people with AIDS, talking about that blood, contaminated blood. Very sad. It's true that what you are saying. Colonel Singh, sellouts, JTV Facts, Brother Leo, JNL Singh, liars, hate the truth, Colonel Singh, the nation, our truth, Colonel Singh, very true. And yeah, that's about it, really. Lenora Shepherd, thank you very much, dear sister, for your contribution. Very much appreciate that. That helps us to keep doing what we're doing and hopefully take it to a whole different level. Dear family, thank you so much. Also to James Maxton, thank you also, dear brother, for your contribution. Very much appreciate that. And very much looking forward, dear family, to seeing you all again very soon. And I hope that something that was said this evening was of benefit and that you got something from our presentation, because the idea is to really give you something to go away to think about and also to act upon and to energize you to be able to go out and make a change for yourself.
Save ourselves.
Absolutely. May Allah bless you all. Thank you for being supporters of the Imagination Show. And it just leaves us to say, Assalamu alaikum. Take care, beloved family.